In this tutorial, we're going to add some style to our ExpressJS blogging application, as in the last lesson we'd created some markup for our blog posts and our form, but we hadn't actually added any layout or style to format it nicely for the user. So when viewing our blog posts, it's difficult to see where the actual blog content starts and ends, and the form obviously isn't laid out very intuitively and looks a little bit of a mess. So we'll add some style to when the blog posts are being viewed in just a second, but first of all let's address the form itself. And I'm going to pull up Visual Studio Code alongside the template so that we can see the changes being made as we do them. So the first thing I'm going to do inside of our form EJS template, I'm just going to add a class onto the form, just so that it makes it easier to target with CSS, and so we don't get any conflicts with any other forms that we might add into our application later on. I'm also going to do a similar thing in the View Posts EJS template. So for each blog post, I've actually just wrapped it in a div with a class of post. And so for the information about the author and the date published, I've just added a class to the paragraph tag. So again, we can easily target with CSS. So obviously just adding those classes won't do anything by itself. So let's head on to the style sheet now where we can actually start making some changes to the view. So the first thing I'm going to do is just add a global rule to change the box sizing model to border box. And I'm just adding this so we don't get any inconsistencies with widths, particularly within our form. And then I'm actually going to target the add post form class that we created on the form a moment ago. And inside there, I'm going to add two rules. I'm going to set the display property of the form to flex and also put the direction of the items in a column. So if we refresh the page now, you can see the form controls are laid out in a nice column for us. But they're a bit all over the place because the labels have got different lengths, so let's put those on a separate row as well. And I'm going to do that simply by making the form controls, the input boxes, 100% width of the container. And don't forget the title and author are text inputs, but the actual content is a text area. And of course we've got the submit post button at the bottom of the form. So let's refresh the form again. So that's looking a little bit more like a form that we would want to fill in, but I think I'm going to make the labels a bit bolder and also give some style to the button. So that's looking a lot nicer, and you can imagine if we set this up as a partial on its own, we could drop that into any part of our application. So with that done, let's move on to the styling of the post listing page. So here I've just added a border to the bottom of each div that contains each of the blog posts, just to give it a bit of a separator, and also given some colour to the heading level 1 tag and reduce the size of the meta information. But if we were to go to the view posts route now and refresh it, you'll see there's no effect. And that's because the view posts EJS template doesn't actually include the style sheet anywhere, so we'll need to go in and add that at the top of the template. So now when we refresh the page, we can see those elements being styled. And it's probably worth saying that we would be better off creating partials for headers and footers to include things like style sheets on every route that we're using. And we did this a few lessons ago when we looked at static content, so go back and take a look at that video if you want to refresh your memory. So we haven't made any changes to the code for adding and viewing blog posts from the database, but let's just add a new one just to test everything's still working. So when we refresh the view posts route, you can see the new post is appearing as expected. So in the final part of our ExpressJS blog project, we'll look at adding a couple of new features, such as showing a message when the add new blog post form has been completed, and also adding a new route with the path parameter to view an individual blog post.